island of Guadalcanal, located northeast of Australia, was a principal objective of the United States campaign in the Solomon Islands and New Guinea. The American invasion of Guadalcanal on August 7, 1942, opened the first U.S. offensive of World War II.
Yeah, Henderson Field, I was there all the time. I was on the 20 millimeter, and then they send over a 37 millimeter, and I got on that. But then they send me back to that 20 millimeter, and that's when those two guys went to Mass, and they came back, and they seen that we was manning our 20 millimeters, and they figured they better man their 50 caliber machine gun. And then we was being shelled by the biggest guns the Japs had. Was a 155, and that's a real big one. And so we was on our gun, and I remember it was getting louder and louder, and I says, "Goodbye, cruel world," and it hit close by, and when everything quieted down, we got out of our hole and went looking around. These two guys, they got a direct hit. One guy was laying over that they have a water tank where they pump the water to keep the machine guns cool, you know. And he was over that, and you could see every bit of his body about that far apart was shrapnel. In other words, he died in a split second. And I think I was telling you, it took me 60 years to find out they were really shooting for us because we had the bigger gun. Because the Japs wouldn't shoot at the smaller gun, they would shoot at the bigger gun. And all it would take is just a little bit of breeze, and it'll throw them off, and that's what happened. And I figured that was close. You know, there's a lot of times you just don't think right. Well, not only that, is when you're in combat, and what we had to go through, day in and day out, we were just more or less half there. You know, in other words, I didn't get much sleep. That pounding of the shells and bombs and all that, and a lot of the guys got malaria, but some of them, malaria was like this. You could get it, and it'd be like a cold. And otherwise, it could be you would go out of your head. It'd be extremes, from one extreme to the other, you know. So that's the way malaria was. And I was very fortunate. I didn't get malaria, even though I was out in the open. 4 months out in the open, but had never been in a tent or anything.
The Japanese had occupied the island with the objective of building an airfield, which would give them a place to stage air support for the long-planned invasion and occupation of Port Moresby in New Guinea. The objective of the American counter-invasion was to capture the airfield before the Japanese made it operational, to hold it and to put it to use if possible.
I remember the Japs would come in and bomb the airfield, and they'd pound that airfield so much, it would get at about 32,000 feet, and our guns only could reach 30,000. But later on, we got some bigger guns, and they were able to get those Japs at 32,000. It was just a wonderful sight to see them coming in, because they were brand new planes, and they didn't have the camouflage paint on it at all. They come in really looking real good, because They wasn't afraid before because they knew they were out of our reach of our guns, but later on they found out different.
There were many decorations for the heroic battle for Guadalcanal. Admiral Nimitz, the commander-in-chief of the Pacific Theater, who was no armchair commander, came all the way from Hawaii to decorate General Vandegrift. The highest honors were awarded officers and men alike. Majors, captains, privates had all proven themselves in the test by fire. One young Marine pilot had 10 Japanese bombers and 19 fighter plane kills to his credit, one of the outstanding records of the war. In November of 1942, most of the Marine contingent was relieved by U.S. Army units, who consolidated the hold on the island. The Marines had fought for over 120 consecutive days in extreme conditions of malarial jungle, high heat, and limited supply and reinforcement.
We had, I'd say, a real good bunch of aviators, the few that we had. And we didn't have any planes about the first 2 weeks either. The Japs sunk just about all our warships, but somehow other they didn't get our transport, but they sunk all our warships. Well, it made it look like the Japs was controlling the island, because they had their warships patrolling like they had the island, you know, and not us. But we were there, and somehow we made it. 1st Marine Division. Yeah, and the 1st Marine Division was the 1st Brigade. No, I didn't have to go out to jungles. I just stayed at the airfield, yeah.
Until you?
Yeah. We had some guys that went out to the jungles also. And they were the artillery outfit. They would, some of them would go out on jungles, but we were mainly for the airfield because it was important that we hung on to the airfield.
The landings on Guadalcanal and the surrounding islands were a complete surprise to the Japanese, whose scouting aircraft had been grounded by bad weather. The Marines made an unopposed landing, offloading men and material from landing craft throughout D-Day. That night, the Marines dug in around their landing area near the Tenaroo River. By the time the Japanese High Command realized the islands had been invaded, 24 hours had passed and over 11,000 Marines had landed. Early the next morning, the Marine commander, Major General Alexander Vandegrift, received an unpleasant surprise from the invasion fleet commander, Admiral Turner. The admiral informed the general that the entire transport fleet would pull up anchor and sail the next day at 9 a.m., giving the Marines just over 24 hours to unload all their combat gear, equipment, and supplies. Admiral Turner feared the arrival of the powerful Japanese battleship fleet, which could quickly destroy his lightly armed invasion fleet. With the clock ticking, the Marines got to work unloading the landing ships as quickly as possible, mounting equipment onto a beach that was growing ever more congested. That same day, D-Day +1, saw the Marines advance onto the airfield to find that the Japanese engineering battalion that had constructed it had abandoned it to the advancing Marines.